guys spend money? How do you spend money? You don't pass?
Yeah, we don't have a balanced budget amendment.
Well,
in
well,
the
you don't have any
Constitution.
amendment for anything. I mean, here's a budget and it doesn't get
The
approved.
Senate has not, we in the House passed the Ryan budget, whether you like it or not, we did it,
Yeah.
and it's balanced. I supported it. The Senate has not passed anything, and the Ryan budget was dead on arrival, and Senator Reid has not done anything. Now, the American people really should realize the House of Representatives did their job, and the Senate did theirs. Now, the President is offering a budget. It shows deficit, but you credit to the President. He has offered a budget. He's got something that we can talk about. Now, the Republicans might say they don't like it. Democrats might like it. But why doesn't Harry Reid at least try to pass the President's budget?
You won't even present it.
He did last year. He presented the President's budget, and it lost. The Democrats all voted against it. So, I mean, that just shows you that even the Senate Democrats don't support the President's budget.
Okay, so with a deficit of 1.8 or 1.9 trillion dollars this year, for next year, I should say, there's money going to be spent, but there's never been an approval to spend it.
Well, the way it gets approved is you vote for a continuing resolution to increase the debt ceiling.
So you continue to do that.
Just continue that.
And you've been doing that, or the Congress has been doing that for the last 2 or 3 years, and going to do it now.
They've been doing
Ad
it, as
infinitum.
far as I've been in Congress, we've been doing it.
So ad infinitum, you're going to keep passing.
That's what they do. Now, I have voted against some continuing resolutions, I voted for some. You know, sometimes I don't want to shut the government down.
Of course.
You know, at one point, we had a possibility of shutting the government down, which includes military would get their checks. You know, but when I look at it carefully, we have enough reserves that the military and Social Security and Medicare recipients, they get paid. But the discretionary, which would include the Department of Education, Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, you know, in my humble opinion, some of those should not get paid.
Don't you think it's time then, somewhere along the line, we ought to do something in this country to stop that kind of baloney?
You went to college to do that?
Yeah, he's got his MBA.
You went to college to do that, right?
Well, shouldn't we do something like
We've
that?
added an asterisk to his name is Jason Tiemann, so we got an asterisk to the bottom that says, "You will haul the projector out." No, I mean, what you're saying is just so inimically true that we should balance the budget and we should not spend more than we make like every other family.
Very simple.
And you know, whether it's the Tea Party or Occupy Wall Street, these are people that are outraged, like most Americans are, that Congress is not doing this. I just can't tell you how frustrating it is to see members of Congress vote for more spending. I mean, it has a beautiful sounding name. It sounds like it's going to help everybody, but it's more spending. And so that's why I voted many times against it, even against something that might even say the United States governments can buy more land to make a better park. And I say we've got enough land and we don't have to buy any more land in this country because we can't afford it. In fact, we should take some of the land we have and rent it or sell it off and try to get this under control. Because if we don't, this country is going to, well, and there's going to be absolute chaos, you know, because you see what's happening in Greece. In Greece now, they're having all their bondholders have lost a lot of money. The people that are going to be most affected are in the safety net, and they're going to lose a lot. They're going to be upset, and it all happens because this slow, gradual increase of spending every year with nobody taking a stand. It seems to me we could take one. The Department of Energy is one that I feel we should just probably cut their budget in half.
No, we ought to get rid of it. Get rid of it. Don't cut it. Get rid of it.
I've asked for it, and I'm on a bill to get rid of it. I'm just saying in public, I try to be a little bit, yeah, but the Department of Energy was not, before Jimmy Carter, we didn't have a Department of Energy, okay? Now, we have the Department of Energy, and it does about $30 billion a year in revenues we give them. And what are they doing to make us energy independent?
Nothing.
And how many, if they got thousands and thousands of employees, every one of you would like to have one of their jobs. They start anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000. You've got thrift savings account, you've got health care, you've got, you get off all these legal holidays, President's Day. I mean, when I operated my motels and restaurants, I never had a day off with President's Day or Lincoln Day. I never got any of these days off. I get Christmas off probably, but even Christmas, if the desk clerk got full, I had to come in and help. So I agree with the Department of Energy. Yes, ma'am, all the way in the back, just stand up.
Yes, in my humble opinion, for you to act so outraged with the Solyndra issue, $500 million dollars is a lot of money. What about the billions of dollars that we approved to give to banks?
Okay.
That you're
To
in
give to
charge of
those Wall Street
investigating.
moguls?
Okay.
Why are you not outraged about that? Why are you not doing something to fix that wrong? My second question is, I would like you to speak to every woman in this room and every woman who would have been denied the opportunity to have mammograms with your ridiculous cut to women, your insult to women through
What
your
cuts are-
Planned Parenthood investigation.
Oh, okay. I voted against the TARP, which is a bailout. I
But
voted
you're in
against.
charge of investigating
No,
these
let me
people.
answer your question. I voted against the stimulus package. If you go on my webpage, why don't you look at the videotape of me interrogating Hank Paulson, the Secretary of Treasury, about the TARP. So I was one of the members outraged against the bank bailouts and that TARP, and in many ways outraged against Bernanke, who is the chairman of the Federal Reserve. The only Republican in the House of Representatives to stand up and say he should not be appointed, you can see my speech, because this man is doing Q1, Q2, Q3s, and all this is creating inflation, and it's just creating too much money in the economy, which ultimately is going to create inflation. Now, and your second question is, as oversight chairman, I have the responsibility to look at government spending. Planned Parenthood gets roughly $487 million a year of taxpayers' money. Now, if I'm going to look at Solyndra, which is $535 million, why is it wrong for me to look at Planned Parenthood? Planned Parenthood has been around for 90 years. There's not one oversight investigation of Planned Parenthood in its entire 90 years. Are you saying it's wrong for one member of Congress to ask how taxpayers' money are being spent? This is not a question of issues of women's mammograms or the pink ribbons. This is about 88 affiliates that across this country in the last 10 years, states have found fraud and overbilling by Planned Parenthood, and they have been fined, and they've had to pay these fines. We have found across the board, like any government agency, this is a not-for-profit separate agency, but it gets taxpayers' money. Is it wrong for me to say, what are you doing with taxpayers' money in these 88 affiliates, and more importantly, bring some accountability? So all my letter that went out dealt with financial, had nothing to do with women's issues or anything else. It was just doing what the Constitution says. Stearns, look at government spending and see if there's some way to make it accountable. Yes,
I'm a
ma'am.
woman and
You've
I
actually-
thank you.
I do too. But could I address
Yeah,
this, please?
go ahead.
Okay, first of all, people don't realize that aside from just the abortion facilities, most of which do not do mammograms, they also get millions
Stand up.
and millions, I can hardly stand.
Oh, okay, that's it. I'll repeat it.
Okay, millions and millions of dollars for sex education programs. And I personally found 33 million coming from Title V of Social Security money and 155 million coming from grants from HHS, and a lot of them are hidden. And so what I'm saying is, and this doesn't even account for the state and the local and the charity and the private contributions. These people
Susan
are
G.
making
Komen.
a fortune, and they are not accountable. But here's the thing, they're not only not accountable, they told us that they had to do these sex education programs to reduce teen pregnancy and to reduce teen sexual activity. Well, guess what? There is absolutely no proof anywhere of anything to do with teen pregnancy, because our local health departments don't carry the data, our state health departments don't carry it, and therefore our national health departments have nowhere to get it, and neither does Planned Parenthood. But aside from that, in Planned Parenthood's own report, and you can look it up online, they tell you on pages 19 through 21 that the teen pregnancy is only an estimate, and that estimate is based on the birth rate, which we do have figures for, but it's also based on estimates from the abortion rates and the miscarriage rates.
Gotcha. Okay.
So basically, we're giving them millions of dollars based on an estimate that are based on estimates.
Yeah. Well, let me just confine it to questions here, because everybody can give an advocacy for their position. But I think just the fact is that if you look at what I'm doing, it's a responsible response to an organization that gets taxpayers' money. So, yes, sir.
I listen to you and I hear the words that are tentative and not specific and not assertive. I don't see why in the world you would be afraid that the American people would not want you to take contempt of Congress action against Solyndra. If you're afraid that we will object, let me assure you, you shouldn't be. The Democratic leadership has been, in my view, cowardly because they will not call the Democrats on any issue involving, something that they're afraid of also. For instance, shutting down the government. If the Democrats are so stubborn and so stupid that they think that we ought to continue to go into debt to run the government, then shut it down and don't be afraid of what we're going to think, because we'll applaud you.
All right. What's your first name?
Frank?
Frank, okay, Frank, you were Frank. Let me just say that I have been on public in saying that we should move ultimately to consider contempt of Congress. The way it worked, we'd have a business meeting and the Oversight and Investigation Committee that I chair. Democrats and Republicans would sit down, we'd talk in the business meeting, and I would bring up the recommendation. Then we'd vote on it. Democrats would all vote no, Republicans vote yes. Then it moves to the Energy and Commerce Full Committee, and they vote. Then after that, it moves to the House of Representatives. So, as I point out, that if the White House continues to stall, that this would be the ultimate response. Now, the problem is with the contempt of Congress is you have to give it to the Attorney General Holder, and he has to serve it to the President. He's not going to serve it. So then the next step, you've got to go to the federal courts, and then you've got to get the federal courts to do it. And so it becomes civil litigation. So, and then Holder probably come in to try and stop it. So there's a lot of steps between the cup and the lip here. But I think the significance is if the White House has failed to respond properly, then by golly, we should move constitutionally to the next step. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right there. Right there. Right behind you. Let me just take this woman.
Beg your pardon?
You're stand up if you can. Can you stand up?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. We just didn't know who you was appointing. I would like to ask, if your investigative committee, and I commend you on doing investigation.
Oh, I'm going to let her go, and I'll get to you next. Okay, dear? Go ahead.
Is, how about this thing of importing fake drugs and have mercury in them and all this? How about investigating them and see if we can't clean that up, the imports we're getting?
I
You think
agree.
you're getting a medication?
What she's asking is, can I do an oversight investigation into drugs that come in, particularly from foreign countries like Mexico or China, or even some of the North African countries which are contaminated, and some of them are in which they give you a bottle that looks identical to the bottle that you would buy at the drugstore, but in the end it's fake medicine. I have not done any hearings on food safety, but when I was chairman of the Commerce